chapter clicked in to College Volleyball Weekly on Viral Volley Media. Now here's your host, Rob on mic.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to College Volleyball Weekly, episode 260, which is our Week 10 recap. And we have a great episode. It's Theo's thoughts, not deep thoughts, Theo's thoughts. But, life happens. The reality of it is Theo's got sick kids at home. Brad's car's blown out or something like that. Jay's on spring break, so they have practice. And Dan, because he's so important, he's on an AVCA call. So they may jump in hot. We coming in hot is welcome on this show. But Theo's had a great couple weeks this season here. Actually, a great season so far. But he's also kept up on what's happening. So Theo, good morning and great to have you on again.
Good morning, Rob, and thanks for having me. And I think the first topic should be about dedication. And for our other coaches on this panel, let's find a way to be more dedicated to the podcast. Figured I'd start with some shots fired. You know what I mean?
I know. Across the bow. Well, we know that they are doing all they can to grow the game. And obviously, Brad's got a little one on the way, bun in the oven, so to speak. And he's got to take care of the honey-do list because it extended on Monday, apparently. So, but let's start off with one of the news segments that we have during the week. And I loved it when I was like, oh, this sounds great. Close encounters of the Moni kind. But it could be close encounters of the Northridge kind because Long Beach State was at CSUN this week, and they also hosted Sacred Heart. So, Theo, that's you. Tell us about first Sacred Heart, then go into the Long Beach State matchup.
Sure. Yeah, I thought it was a good match for us, or I should say a good week for us. We had like a 10-day hiatus prior to our match against Cal Lu the prior week. And it was nice to get back on the floor against Sacred Heart. I think that's actually technically the first meeting for our two programs.
Oh.
And they're a good team. They do some things really, really well. But it was an opportunity for us to really get our offense going again and playing at a really high level. And I think we hit somewhere in the neighborhood of 450 to 500 and played really well and kind of served incredibly tough and kept a lot of pressure on them. And we're able to kind of work through some of our systems that we've been working on and some of the things that we wanted to do to prepare for Long Beach. And so it was a great match, a good match to start the week. We played on a Monday, which is a really, really strange thing for us to do. It's really not very typical. And
so we jumped off the episode and right into the gym, right?
Yeah, I mean, quite literally, man. We had to switch up our practice slots and practice times and stuff that you do with basketball and some of the minute details that, I think for the people listening that you'd find pretty unique. As a men's volleyball, for us, at least at Northridge, we share the gym, right, with 4 programs: men's, women's basketball, women's volleyball. And so scheduling is a really, really big deal. And anytime you do something out of the ordinary, you got to work it past the other 3 programs in the gym. And so anyways, it worked itself out. But we ended up, I think, Rob, you get a kick out of this because you do so much for Irvine. But because it was on a Monday, our event staff, we have a guy who is pretty savvy. He does our scoreboard and our DV Sport stuff. And he just completely forgot about the match. And so like literally 20 minutes before the match is about to start, he called our event staff and was like, hey, I just saw there's a match. I'm not going to make it. And we had to pivot and figure some things out. So, but anyways, it ended up working out well. And the guys played pretty well.
Well, he also had a debut of a colleague on staff on the ESPN Plus feed, Achilles Montoya of the women's team.
Yeah.
He's messaged me, hey, give me some tips.
Yeah, no, Achilles did a fantastic job. He actually streamed both matches, both the Sacred Heart and Long Beach that week. And he actually called me after and was like, hey, I think I found my new calling. He's like, I love this. So he did a great job, brought a ton of energy and, obviously his knowledge for the game. He played at Grand Canyon back in the day and so has quite an understanding of men's volleyball and love and appreciation for the game too. So it was great to have him calling it.
if he's an older guy, I would say he used to play at the Grand and before it became a Canyon, before it, shifted, but he's too young.
He's a little too young.
Well, the Sacred Heart had some pretty fiery athletes, Alexa Mandich and on the court, and he provided a lot of pop. Well, actually, they have a opposite name, Jaron Pop, but I
Yeah,
mean, a lot of big swingers. I mean, their record doesn't show how good they really are. They're in the
sure.
EIVA, back in the EIVA this year. But I suspect they're going to be rising up because they've got some international talent on that roster who's really good.
Yeah, well, and not to mention their setter, who obviously, and those who don't know, I'm actually I'm drawing a blank on his first name.
Austin Buchanan.
Buchanan is, yeah, his mom was the coach at Idaho for many years, and when he was being recruited, he was a number. I mean, he was within the top 5 of his class as far as setters were concerned. Goes to Hawaii, and Jacob was the star at the
Yeah.
time, right?
You got to
So
realize Jakob Tella and
yeah,
Brett Stewart were on there.
yeah. Oh, and Brett Stewart too. I forgot about that after he transferred, right? So yeah, so he really just ended up getting kind of the short end of the stick. Not to say anything about his talent level, because he's a really talented player. He just happened to be playing behind 2 really fantastic setters. Ends up obviously graduating, and then wants to get his graduate degree. Goes over to Sacred Heart, but he's 6'8". I mean, he's 6'7", 6'8". I mean, he's a big athletic setter. So I could see them coming up with some real big upsets in the EIVA, especially in late in their year, as they continue to kind of build on what they're doing. Yeah, I could see them upsetting some teams and screwing up the bracket pretty nicely, actually.
Yeah. Oh, without a doubt. Well, we've been talking about the other teams, but let's talk about your team. And it's not
Yeah.
because it's Theo's Thoughts Show, but you're doing some great stuff in the program there. We were trying to verify before jumping on, but you came in the AVCA poll number 7, which according to the social media says it's the
Yeah.
highest rank for the program since 2018. And
Yeah.
you'd mentioned, oh, but my team was number 1 back in 2000. But still, to rise up as quickly as you have, and year 3 at the helm,
Yeah.
speaks a lot to what you're doing, Theo.
Appreciate that, Rob. Yeah, I try not to think too much about that stuff. Honestly, we're focused so hard on just getting better, and focusing on the process and the things that it takes to get there, right? But the credit really is due to my guys, and specifically Donovan and Jalen, and the new additions of Stillian, Lorenzo, and I mean this group is really, really awesome and super fun to work with, man.
Yep, I'm still going with my Jalen Phillips is actually Miles Morales because how high he's jumping. I've actually got a new graphic that I made. I was just going to send to you. I might just post on my social.
Ooh, I
Oh,
like
perfect.
that.
Well, let's go over to your opponent. I know we've been talking positive stuff about CSUN,
Yeah.
but you had to come across the number 1 ranked team in the nation.
Yeah. Well,
And it was the Moni kind.
look, I'm competitive as anybody, but I still think it was positive in the sense that this was a great match, and Long Beach is a fantastic team, right? And I think everybody that's played them so far, you get there and you compete with this group, and they tell you how great they truly are, and that's just the reality. Their opposite, Herstanovich, was just fantastic, and honestly, he was really the difference in that match. I mean, we couldn't stop him. He was 14 for 19, no errors. we couldn't stop him. And I thought the guys actually did a really great job in dealing with Moni and the complications that he brings to the game. I thought we slowed down their middles quite a bit, held their outsides to no more than 6 kills apiece. So did a really nice job in certain areas. The team hit 530, but a lot of that was their opposite. I mean, 737 with 14 kills. I mean, he was just absolutely epic. I think we hit close to 300 on the night, and Lorenzo hit 381, Jalen hit 391. I mean, we were humming in a lot of respects. 400 out of Stillian. We did some nice things, but they just overpowered us a little bit from the service line. We missed at some inopportune moments, and tip my hat. Long Beach is fantastic. We're looking forward to playing them again this week.
Yeah. Well, on any other given day, your team hits 300, you're usually winning that match. But
Well, and there were times, Rob, where like I mean, we had called a timeout. I think that it was close to tied, and we're hitting 500, and we're down two, and I'm like, I mean, this team is different, and Moni brings a level of complication to the game, and we've talked about this kind of in the podcast all year, but their top point scorer that night was Herstanovic with 15 and a half. Moni's got 11, right? I mean, he's hardly a setter, even though he's the best setter you've ever seen, right? He's a point scorer. He's a threat at the net. I mean, he's all of that.
it's crazy because Long Beach State is 15. Well, actually, they are 15-0 after that match against your guys. But Moni, in I believe over 2/3 of the matches this season, has had double-digit points for a setter.
I mean, we haven't seen the likes of this, right? And then when you go to play him, you play him in real life, and you see his length, and I mean, he truly is the perfect volleyball specimen in terms of the way he's built for the game. He's got a super fast arm, and I mean, he's really the real deal. It's pretty cool, man. It's pretty cool to watch him play.
Well, against Sacred Heart, they tested him at outside hitter, and I really couldn't tell a difference, like a drop in outside hitter talent on the Long Beach side.
Yeah. I mean, he offensively can do it, right? And by no surprise to anybody. And I think in that match, he ran through about 3 to 5 rotations where he was playing opposite, and they set him on the left, they set him on the right. It was he's showing he's got some skills, and he can do it in multi different facets.
Yep. Well, there's 2 teams there who knock it out, and what's awesome is it's all Big West, so you're looking forward to the rest of Big West play, Theo. So
That's right. That's right.
well, let's jump onto another series actually, but it's the Stanford at UCLA ×2 during the week. Night 1, a lot of people were shocked and amazed. No Andrew Rowan on the court because the flu bug was the only thing that could beat that kid up. But Dad was saying that it has to be pretty bad because all through his playing career, he would never not play due to illness. So he had to be down and out pretty bad to not want to play that night.
Not play, yeah.
But Trent Taliaferro takes the start. So I want to get your thoughts on that, Theo.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think just to give the those listening at home, UCLA is really good. If you didn't know, now you do.
Yeah.
And obviously Trent comes in, and you'd assume that there's going to be some letdown, right? Like that would be your, hey, they're going to probably have some connection issues with the BIC, or maybe the middle connection isn't going to quite be there. They hit 415. They hit 415 for the match, which, in general, if you're hitting over 400 as a team, you're going to win a ton of ball games. And so to have a guy like Andrew Rowan, a 2-time national champ, step out of your lineup, and then you still hit over 400 as a team, I mean, that just shows you the depth and the talent that they have. And Trent Taliaferro, I mean, he's got it in his veins, right? I mean, his dad is a champion. His dad is one heck of a competitor, and so Trent was built for this moment. And then as you look through their team and things that they did, I mean, I thought Cooper Robinson was fantastic on the weekend. Ito David looked like his old self, which was really, really nice to see. I think he's had some tough weeks and some injuries and things of that nature. Night 1, he hit 632, 14 kills on 19 swings. And then Zach Rama was, as good as he typically has been, and 15 kills on 31 swings with 3 errors. So, in general, they only had 13 errors in 4 sets on that first night. And
wow.
And to me, the biggest question was going to be, can they replicate that? And they come in and they're almost as good, a little bit less efficient offensively, but defensively they were a nightmare for Stanford on the second night. I think night 2 they hold Stanford to 0.76. Theo Snooey hits 100. Mo Wagner, which in both of these matches actually really struggled. In the second night, he hit -130 on 23 swings. So, there's the other piece to UCLA and what they bring to the table, right? They're incredibly physical, and
Yeah.
their blocking is an absolute nightmare. I think they had 14 and a half blocks on night 2. And so if their offense isn't going to beat you, if their passing isn't going to beat you, which we didn't even talk about that, but from a passing perspective, they passed incredibly well. They dominated the serving pass on the weekend. But their blocking will, and their defense,
Yep.
their ability to dig the ball is just really, really impressive.
Well, it's crazy because with Moses Wagner, he's been offensively producing consistently for Costy's Card. But when you're going up against Zach Rama and Cooper Robinson, along with Cam Thorne and a 6'11" Sean McQuiggan, I mean that's going to create some problems for you.
It sure is. It sure is.
So yeah, and thinking back, like, wow, technically Hawks could have gone to Miles Partain if he really needed to.
Yeah, that's a great point. There's actually rumor mill that he could be playing some libero at some point.
I think that's what the goals I've been hearing. So, but
Right.
some other things which actually is a great time to mention. I will put on my social, but Miles Partain is organizing a fundraiser for relief for Pacific Palisades. Um, I don't have the details. I was reached out to, and I was going to announce it here, but I'll put it on social. But it's all benefits are going to help the Pacific Palisades community fire, or all the people who are affected by the fire. So, but I will get that up there and talk about it more in detail because it isn't until later in March that it's occurring.
That's
But
awesome.
with that, there's something else. Oh, John Hawks. I don't know if you're watching the match on Wednesday, but he was got a wounded wing, a wounded right arm in a sling. So I was texting him. I'm like, tell me it's some kind of glorious accident where you're doing some courageous. He's like, no. But you can tell everyone that I went up on a block against Cam Thorne and got the bad end of the deal. That sounds way better than what he actually told me the arm in the sling was about.
Listen, I've known John Hawks a long time. He's a great friend of mine. He's at a different level. He is not jumping with Cam Thorne. It ain't happening.
That's a 2 or 3 credit card high jump right there for Hawks.
That's exactly right.
Well, let's get to our next series. Actually, Trent Taliaferro, though, just want to finish up on that. I mean, a freshman center coming in and running the show, it speaks volumes of the talent that he has. And, it just shows how, like Theo was saying, that the depth of talent at each position at UCLA. Some teams, like, they lose a setter, they're done. They've got to convert someone else to setter. So, for the most part, it's a great work by Trent Taliaferro in his debut. Because on night 2, he started. Rowan came back in for the last third, like the last third of the second set, and got a couple assists in. And honestly, if he's playing at less than 100%, most teams would take him at that because he was still pretty darn good.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, and we talk about this all the time, Rob, but like what it takes to win a championship, right? And to be competent in that space. We're all going through injuries, illnesses, right? And the potential to lose a guy is obviously part of that. A team's ability to replace a valuable piece and still win, right? And obviously we're going to talk about Chicago and Loyola and their ability to beat Ball State this week without Parker Van Buren.
Yep.
But that's what it takes to win a conference. That's what it takes to win championships. And so obviously UCLA displaying what they've been capable of for the last couple of years. It's pretty impressive.
So I had to respond to a text because as you see our situation, it's the Theo's Thoughts takeover, but there's a chance we could have some guys coming in hot on the hour. So we'll see. It'd be interesting. I always love when guys come in hot. Not the hot mic moment. We know everyone likes that segment, but coming in hot. Let's jump over to another MPSF team, or couple of MPSF teams. Trojans went up to Provo and took both of them. I thought that for sure it's at least going to be a split, but Theo, pretty amazing work by Nygaard and his guys.
These were 2 really, really impressive matches. And obviously night 1 goes 5 and I mean, just has everything that you want in a volleyball.
Go back and watch the archive. The 5th set from 15 on.
It's in the 5th set. Yeah, there's a whole nother fifth set attached to 15 on. Yeah, I mean, it was just absolutely epic. And you got two teams that are really, really playing tough in an incredible crowd, right? At the Smith Fieldhouse. Um, yeah, but I think the story here is what SC has been able to continually overcome, and the challenges that they've been able to battle through. And I think this team is young in a lot of ways, right? And with guys like Sterling Foley, they're a little bit inexperienced in that front, and so they don't have that same expectations that we would have in a UCLA or a Irvine, things of that nature. Obviously, Dylan Klein is that dude, right? But they're a little bit young in that sense. And so to see them surviving in these tough scenarios again and again is really what's impressive to me. Um, and a lot of it, like as I look through it, obviously for BYU standards, Keone Thim is, to me, BYU live or dies by him, right? And if he's great, they're going to be in that match, and it's going to be a really impressive run. If he's not so good, they're going to have a tough time, and we saw that on night 2. Right.
Right. Yep. Well, that first night was amazing because BYU actually served for 2 match points. USC battled back, served for 2 of their own. BYU battled back, they served for another 2. It was insane.
It was a slugfest. It was a slugfest, and a lot of high balls, a lot of out of system work. I think in night 1, I think Sterling Foley passed like a 1.5, which in Division I standards, most people don't stay on the court passing that poorly, right? And but to his defense, he hit 500. And I mean, every ball that he passed out of system, they could toss it up to him, and he would go and slug with the triple block, go over it at times, and just do some really, really special things offensively. And to me, he's been the biggest game changer for USC. And we could talk about Parker Tompkinson, and we could talk about Caleb Blanchette, who both are really, really fantastic in their own right. But outsides have a really tough job, right? And their ability to pass the ball, to keep you in system, to hit the out of system ball, there's a lot of pressure that lies on them. And it's not often that you see a freshman do it at a really, really high level. And Sterling Foley is definitely carrying this team in many ways.
One of the things that caught my eye was his arm swing. He's got a lightning quick swing with a pretty crazy snap. I mean, the way he's moving around the blocks and hitting over blocks, and how fast he's coming in on the bick. I'm like, wow, Nygaard, this is just a few weeks of the season, because he wasn't starting early on. Right. I don't know if it's due to injury or he just wanted to find his feet better, but he is stepping up.
It's likely the learning curve, right? Like a lot of these first-time guys, they're, talented as they may be, it still takes some time, right? Understanding how to kind of keep your feet underneath you and limit the errors and play this game consistently. And, Sterling, over the course of essentially, let's see here, 8 sets of volleyball, he had 4 errors. Wow. He hit 500 on night 1. He hit 533 on night 2.
Yep.
I mean, those are middle blocker numbers, and he's doing it on the left as a passer. So you got to give some respect there. And obviously Dylan Klein gives him that freedom, right? Dylan Klein is carrying the bulk of the sets along with Jack Dukert. Those guys are obviously your rock solids, but to have that extra outlet, to have that 0-2 position be as consistent as Sterling has been, it's really been the difference for this USC group.
Well, Dylan Klein is just a workhorse who happens to jump out of the sky. So, although his numbers didn't lead on, I believe on night 2, he may have, I need to go back and look at the stats there, but on night 1, he had so many, one clutch play that play was the momentum shifter in the match, where is a hard hit ball by BYU, dug the wrong direction by SC, maybe it was Dykstra bumps at it where the bleachers are on the floor at Smith Fieldhouse in the very back corner, just beyond the team, got to the left pin for Klein, who elevates, traps at 50-50, left hand, and somehow forces it through the block and win that point.
Yep, I remember that exact play.
I'm
Man,
like, how did he win out on that?
it was very Heno-esque, actually, is what I would say.
Well, let's jump on to another team. We're going to go to the Meve on this one. It's, I love the graphic that came out this last week. It's Nikki's throne in the Meva. Apparently, she's sitting on this throne, and it's the queen that's ruling the Meva. Nikki Sandlin, head coach, program best 9-match winning streak. Also, record high blocks in the program against Maryville with 11. And then their team sweeps the Meva awards for the week. Hoskin, the offensive player of the week, and De'Aaron McCraney, the defensive player of the week. So, what do we know? Well, I know you know a lot about Nikki, but what's her team doing so well that's got them up in the AVCA poll?
Well, a couple of things, right? Like I know Nikki incredibly well. She's a great friend of mine and one heck of a coach. And she's got her team playing great. And a lot of it, you could look at the stats. They're doing some really impressive things from a volleyball perspective. But when you watch this team play emotionally and the attention to detail, the effort plays, the long rally efforts, I mean, they are playing for Nikki. They're playing for each other. They're playing for their university. And it's really cool to see what they've been able to accomplish. I mean, I think we had talked about them in the first couple of weeks of the season, and they were sitting at 3-5.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I had said back then was they're going to be rewarded for how tough this early schedule was. They go out to Hawaii, they play them twice, get beat twice. They go to Brad and play in San Diego. They lose that one too. They find some wins against some weaker opponents, but over time they started to figure out their identity. And a lot of these really, really tough matchups that they played early on, I believe, helped them get there. And so we saw it with Loyola last year. We saw it with obviously with McKendree this year. And as much as as a coach and as a team, you want to have a ton of wins and you want to see a bunch of success. In order to prepare yourself for that MIVA run, that conference exhibit, you got to face some tough teams. And Nikki has done a fantastic job of getting these guys going and getting them to play at a high level. And here they are breaking some historic school records, which is pretty cool and exciting to watch.
To making that Meva log jam
Well,
again.
I don't know if it's much of a log jam. They're on top. And
no, that's why she's got the throne right now.
Yeah, at this point, they're everyone else is just chasing them. So
yeah, I couldn't say that with Dan on the show. He'd be kind of.
It makes it real nice for us. Actually, we could just easily say, "Oh yeah, McKendree, #1 team in the MIVA."
Well, kind of a side topic there. I think some people or listeners and viewers may have taken issue with some of our panel saying that the MPSF and the Big West have got this locked down. They're the best conferences in the nation. But Meva making a great argument to be a very challenging conference for anyone. And hands down could be one of the top in the nation as well.
Well, just so if anyone is wondering, they're essentially the 4 of the 5 losses that McKendree has are to Big West programs, actually.
Yeah, there you go. Theo shoving it right in their face.
Just throwing out some stats. Just an analyst, not a coach, just an analyst.
Not Theo's thoughts. Theo's facts now. Dang, way to drop that one down quickly. Whoa. Well, let's move on over to, I like this segment, Riding Hawaii, not riding high, Riding Hawaii. After 2 Big West wins that broke my heart to start off conference play, Irvine 3-0 sweeps in very dominant fashion. With that, it wasn't a surprise that they swept all the Big West weekly awards, offensive setter and defensive player of the week. That's a Christian Tetrisky, the offensive player of the week, Tread Rosenthal setter, and then Eleo Choi, the defensive player of the week. And then the icing on the cake, player of the week for the AVCA, Christian Tetrisky. And then they play Lindenwood twice. So Hawaii in a really good spot right now, Theo. Get your thoughts on that as you are getting ready to face them in a few weeks.
Yeah, well, I think what's been really interesting to watch is the first few weeks of season. I think there were a lot of questions about Hawaii, and I think at one point they had gone from their top ranking seat and kind of slid down a little bit in the rankings. Couple of 5-setters, a loss here, and just a couple of things that just looked unclear, right? Roster adjustments. They're trying to find some pieces. I think Louis was not in the starting lineup early on, and then finally finding his way. Tread Rosenthal, was he in the slump of the sophomore life, or is he going to continue to rise? And to me, you saw them go to BYU, and have that match against BYU, and to me, that's where they found their confidence, right? Like, it's one thing to be on the island, to be at home, and have the whole 10,000 seat Stan Sheriff rooting for you, and to find the energy to muster up some victories. But then to get on the road and go to a place like Smithfield House and play Keone Tim, who obviously all of those players are very fond of, and is a guy who has spent a lot of time in Hawaii. But to do it against that crowd, and Tread Rosenthal comes to life and has the viral back two-hand dump, and they started to really ride. They started to really figure out who they were, and obviously, playing Irvine and taking it to them, they found their stride, and Hawaii is exactly who we all thought they were. They're really talented, and to give a lot of credit to Milan and to Charlie, I mean, I think they're just doing a fantastic job. And every year they prove why they're a couple of the best coaches in the game, and they've gotten better and better and better every single week. And it's really, really impressive to watch, and they're going to be a tough opponent to play here in Northridge.
Well, one player that has been getting as much coverage from the Irvine week and even through the 2 Lindenwood matches this week is their freshman converted outside the middle, Justin Todd, who has been not only a defensive force, but offensively adding even more to problems for opponents, because you've got to deal with Christian Tatrisky, you got to deal with Adrian Rohr, and you got to deal with Luis Sakanoko.
Well, and Todd has been a highlight reel. I mean, he is hammering the ball, Rob. Like, to your point, I mean, he's coming in and with some big plays, and a lot of that has to do with just how well balanced that team is. Defensively, they're so tough to stop, and he catches teams off guard in transition and has some really, really opportune moments. And he's, what is he, 6'9", 6'10"? I mean, he's long as heck.
Yeah.
And he's in and just hammering the ball. And I mean, that team has a lot of weapons, and Todd is nothing to be played with.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to ignore Eleu Choi. I like the little guys behind the block as a little guy, so I've got you, Eleu. Well, it's a good. Are there any other matches that we could hammer in on from week 10 here that we may have skipped out?
I thought one of the things I thought was interesting was, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rob, but I don't think there were any upsets this week.
Yeah, not really. No.
Right? Like, I don't it's probably the first week all season where, and this is one of those things that tends to happen most years, but where the voting is getting more accurate, right? Where the teams that are seated ahead are beating the teams seated below. And I mean, literally, right? That means that the voting is doing its job when you see a lot less upsets. But less interesting from a fan perspective.
Well, I'm looking at my phone because if you follow Matthew J. Houlihan on Instagram, he created his own top 10, the Traders Poll, which I think is amazing.
It's hilarious.
He's basically saying those AVCA coaches don't know a thing. But then if you do a little digging into who's on the poll, all these guys are tied to CSUN. It's a
no, it's well, no, you got Brad Keller in there, right?
Yeah, but he's a CSUN admirer. So
that is true. That is true. I'll give him some credit there. No, but I think it's great to give Matt a shout out. Matt Houlihan and his his social media streams and what he's been doing for men's volleyball. I mean, he's been just absolutely electric. And I mean, yes, he does like CSUN, and I will give him that credit. But man, he's just been such a great vocal leader for men's volleyball, and continually pushing the envelope, willing to say some things that I think at times can be controversial, nothing disrespectful, but at times willing to ask questions about rules and challenge stuff. And his social media is just so exciting and fun to watch.
Yeah, we got to get him up there because Ariel, his wife, is blowing him out follower wise. So we got to get Matthew up there. That's messed up.
You know what we should do, Rob? We should bring him on the show.
Well, then I can't call our show family friendly if that happens in some cases. I mean, I'm entertained by his commentary during play. You know, like I got he's too French on Heno. You know,
that was pretty darn hilarious.
I just wanted to add on for Hawaii since we are, well, actually, no. Before we go on, Penn State and Grand Canyon faced off. That was 15 versus 19 with Grand Canyon taking both of those as a 15th ranked team. And, but, you know, I'm never going to count out a Penn State team come conference play. Never, especially with what's happening in the EIVA right now. So, guess what? Here we go. Our first coming in hot is Jay Hosack of George Mason. I don't know if you can hear or see me yet. And they shifted my screen, so now I'm covering him up. Let's see. He's coming in. You see the video. We have Elvis has entered the building.
Oh, welcome.
Hi, everybody.
Fresh out of practice.
How we doing?
We're going good. We just believe it or not, we're just finishing up some of the top matches of the week.
Okay. So listen, I apologize for coming in hot, but we had practice and there was nothing I could do about it. So I'm here now.
Well, at least you weren't golfing or, you know, taking the week off. I mean, Jay, I have to say, Theo was questioning your dedication to the show.
Yeah,
Jay, never question my dedication to the show.
I did our first segment was on dedication, and Brad, Jay, and Dan all being questioned in their level of dedication.
Well, I came in last minute, so that shows you my dedication.
There we go.
Hey, listen, we were never questioning Jay. It was really just about Dan and Brad. That's really what it was about.
Yeah, screw those guys.
Well, if you can summarize, we'll go over the matches and quick thoughts on Hawaii this last week, Jay.
Yeah, I thought Hawaii, you know, I saw some of the comments about people questioning, you know, oh, Hawaii, not that good this year. They lost a set to a team. Lindenwood's good. You know, they're not a team that just walks into the gym and everybody thinks they're going to win easily. They're a team that scraps. So I got to give them a little credit. But Hawaii played steady. And they took care of business. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter if you win 3, 4, or 5, especially nowadays when you're playing good teams. So I got to give Hawaii a little credit there. They did a nice job of just setting out and Tadrisky. Yeah, nice weekend. Played well, and Treadwell did a nice job of delivering the rock out to the right people at the right times. And you know that's a good win by Hawaii for sure.
Now, we'll give you a chance. Any other matches you wanted to focus on before we move on to what we're watching this week and so forth?
I will comment on 2 that stuck out to me. One, I was impressed and surprised by how quickly Grand Canyon handled Penn State. I thought Grand Canyon just put the pressure up constantly, and Penn State just didn't have an answer. I was surprised to see them go down 0-3 in both those matches. The other match I want to talk about is the first night's match, BYU USC. Serving down the line in the red zone in crunch time seemed to be the Achilles heel for BYU. And USC just kept the pressure on them. I got to give Klein a little bit of love. I got to give Duker a little bit of love. I got to give Tompkinson a little bit of love. They did a real nice job of just keeping that ball in play and hitting it at ridiculous angles. There were some that Tompkinson hit, I think from the 10-foot line, was still hitting quicks and was still putting him down within, 5-6 feet of the end line. That's pretty scary. And Dylan Klein just flies. He's a high flying kid that just, he's cat-like. I would think that most players would not be able to get their hand on the ball and just tip it over, let alone hitting with authority. And he does a real nice job of doing that. So hats off to USC for the first night victory in 5. Going extra innings, so to speak, and then the second night just handling them pretty well. So, yeah, USC is a team to be reckoned with for sure.
Well, let me ask this to both of you here, because one of the positions that is not mentioned as often is the libero position. But who is a standout libero in the MPSF? Because, I haven't really There's Luka Kirch at UCLA. You have Evan Rodriguez at Stanford, Johnny Dykstra at USC, and you know, we don't hear a lot about what they're doing, but these teams are winning.
Well, Dykstra's a true freshman, isn't he?
Yep.
That's the kid I'd give the nod to out of those three that you mentioned. That for a young kid to come in and handle the pressure that he is in his first year. I mean, there's a number of freshmen around the country in various teams in various positions that are really becoming contributors to their teams immediately, and he is one of them. Dykstra is one of those kids that a lot of coaches knew about, but USC got him, and man, is that kid going to be really good moving forward. I'm pretty impressed with him and the way he handles it.
Yeah,
I agree, and I think to add to that, you know, one of the biggest challenges in our game is especially for freshmen is to go up against the serving and the level of serving that we're seeing today. I mean, obviously we've talked about it in here, right? Moni hit 84 this year, right? And there's multiple servers that now are making the early 70s look like just an average serve, like they're every day. And so to be a freshman who was playing club the year before and the average speed was like 45 miles per hour, to jump 30 miles per hour in like 3 months, essentially, is a big adjustment. And so, yeah, I give Dykstra a lot of credit, man. I think he's doing a fantastic job.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anything else? One last chance before we move on, Jay?
No, I'm sure you guys covered everything pretty well. I don't need to go over the top of what you guys already talked
Well,
about.
I think the one we didn't talk about, Rob, that maybe Jay can shed some light on is the Loyola Ball State, and specifically, you know, not having their big dog, right? Parker Van Buren being out of the lineup, and to see guys like Fabakovic and I think is it Howard? Is that the guy that came in on the right?
Yep.
Yeah, and to have Howard come in, and I mean, this team showed that they are capable of winning without Parker. And you know, if you asked people in the beginning of the year, you know, I think all of us expectations is that the reason that team is so good is because of Parker. But to beat Ball State and to do it in the fashion that they did, and have the guy step up, and I mean, so Tyler Howard had 15 kills, hit 440. Daniel Fabakovic 19 kills, hit 378. I mean, those are some big numbers and some big guns. And so Parker not being in the lineup turned out to not be an issue against Ball State. Pretty impressive.
I think to piggyback on that, I think you're right. You know, to have a kid come in and who hasn't got much playing time and to do well, definitely bodes well for Loyola moving forward. Here's my couple of comments regarding that match because I watched it. One, it's easier, not easy, but easier to get kills when nobody knows any of your tendencies. And Howard is relatively new in terms of playing this year. So there's not a lot of scouting report on him. There's not a lot of tendency reports. So he's getting a chance to kind of do some things that maybe guys aren't used to seeing. They aren't used to taking away certain things to slow him down. It wasn't pretty. He wasn't hitting lights out. He had some pretty, you know, some pretty bad swings here and there, but he did a nice job keeping it up. The other thing for Ball State is, I believe this is T's first game back after being injured. So he was not playing at 100% in rhythm, and that could definitely be a factor. And then the opposite for Ball State, I forgot his name, the transfer, the D3 player of the year.
Oh,
Alameni, no.
Rajay Elaine.
Eleni.
Oh, yeah, Rajay Elaine.
I apologize to him if he's watching. I apologize. I butchered your name, but you're getting recognition here. That kid's a beast. Holy smokes, can that kid play? But at times he was also looking pretty pedestrian, which Ball State needed because T obviously was not in rhythm playing wise, has been out for a while. So I give Loyola credit. They won and won without their big dog. I don't know if it was Ball State's top effort across the board, but it wasn't Loyola's either. So for Loyola to pull it off in Ball State's gym, pretty good win. And Ball State, let's comment on their Terraflex floor. It looks really nice. Nicely done.
Well, with perfect timing comes Dan Friend of Lewis after doing his important business, the AVCA. And we're talking about his conference. So we're talking about the Loyola Ball State match.
Yeah, I watched that. So kudos to Loyola. And I caught the tail end of Jay's conversation, but those guys came to play. They were pretty fired up. And Ball State had all their pieces back. So Tanisha was back on the court. And so with Patrick Rogers and Raja in their main lineup. And I thought Ball State just made some errors and Loyola capitalized. They made a nice run on them. That was pretty key in game 2. And so I think tough place to play, tough place to win. But that's going to be huge down the road because Ball State's got to go to Loyola here in a few weeks, and that'll be another big game for those guys. But yeah, it's a pretty cool floor, Jay. We played on it, so they did a pretty nice job. 150,000, baby. I got to work on that. So
Got to have a few more golf tournaments.
yeah, and then some.
Well, looking at what I believe Jay was saying about Tyler Howard, who was playing for Loyola in place of PVB or Parker Van Buren. He's saying, he's whiffing here and there. The guy still hit 440 with 15 kills. So, not a bad night for a debut. So, with that, we've already talked about a lot of the matches, but who are the top players of the week? And let's go for a few of them. Who feels ready? I think that Dan, I know. Oh, Jay. Okay, there we go.
Gotta love how I just stepped right all over Theo being here for a while.
I got so many, it doesn't matter.
I'm only gonna name one, and because he hasn't gotten any mention this year. Jack Duker for USC, 23 kills, 295 in that first night, and then the second night had another outstanding performance. What year is he?
He's sophomore.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Pretty good for a sophomore. Got to give that kid a lot of credit. So Duker getting a little love today.
The Flying Hawaiian. All right.
I got a couple.
One for Jay. Wow. Okay.
I got a couple.
Dan's looking hard, so we'll go to Theo.
It's funny, we've talked about him a ton, but I honestly don't know how many times we've actually given him player of the week. And I think Moni Nikolov has my vote this week, just in terms of being able to finally see that guy in person and hopefully to jinx him for next week. And then the other guy that I'm going to give it to is who I think is a little bit of an unsung hero. And before Jay and Dan got on, I talked a little bit about this, but Sterling Foley and the way that he has helped kind of transform that USC offense. Night 1 hits 500, night 2 hits 533, putting up middle blocker type of numbers in BYU, in the Smithfield house. That guy's playing some really, really high level ball, and he's not getting the volume of the sets, right? I think, the ability for him to hit like that is because Dylan carries a lot of the weight, and obviously Jack Dukert as well. But Sterling Foley is impressing as a freshman. I mean, that guy's doing a really, really great job. So that's the other guy I'm throwing up there.
The future for USC looks pretty good with Duker, Foley, Tompkinson, and Dykstra.
And
that's
Caleb Blanchett.
Scary.
Yeah,
pretty scary.
That team's going to be pretty good for a while.
Yeah.
All right, Dan.
Well, I'm going to do some Meva love. So you got to give somebody off Loyola. So we're going to give it to Tyler Howard, stepping off, filling in some of the biggest shoes you got to fill in and helping being a catalyst for his team to go get a huge conference on the road win. And then we're going to give some love to Boone Feltz. What a name. So he kind of stepped in for Shuley on a couple non-conference wins for McKendree. I think that's some pretty good numbers in his 2 matches. So those would be my 2 guys.
I'm going to throw one in there because I forgot to cover my own team. They're coming off a 4-match losing streak as UC Irvine, and they bounced back. Excuse me, in a big way against Pepperdine, 3-0 sweep. But Hilaire Heno, if you watch that match, actually it was audio stream. Come on. Hilaire started off the night really slow. In fact, he was pretty deep in the negatives hitting wise. He finished the match hitting 315 kills and got his serving game back on. But you could see that change as he got after the first set, he grooved back in and really picked it back up, and he lit it up from then on forward, and then next night against Sacred Heart. So Hilaire Heno, I think, is the first time that he's actually been named as a player of the week here. So I've been looking back through the graphics. I haven't, maybe once, but it's early on. So give that to him. And I'm glad you mentioned Boone Feltz because saw the name, but the numbers were amazing, Dan. I was like, where's he been? Is McKendree pulling out a secret force or something?
Well, we'll see which one we get. I'm pretty sure we'll probably get Kevin coming up this weekend. So So.
Rob, you know, it's interesting. We didn't talk a lot about that Pepperdine-Irvine match, but that was an interesting match. A really interesting match.
Yeah. Well, the Cole Harkey is, I'm going to say it again, he's a big dude. I mean, 6'11", I'd be throwing the ball every time.
Yeah. He's a big dude, but for UCI to beat them in the fashion that they did, coming off of a 4-game loss streak, but more importantly, is it about the losses or is it about who they were playing that caused them to lose? Because that was one heck of a beatdown that they served to Pepperdine.
Well, Niv changed the lineup right at the Hawaii series, so it's a new look Irvine. They're a
I
lot
have
bigger.
not seen that. Theo, was Nolan on the left or the right?
Nolan's on the left.
Mm.
Darcy at the right.
It is very, very different. And honestly, like when they first did it was a disaster. It didn't look good at all. They looked a lot better now.
Maybe it takes a few.
Was he
few
passing
reps.
better?
They passed much better. Their serving was ridiculous. I thought Irvine just served the lights out of the ball. Made it really, really tough for Pepperdine. I mean, the closest set was 25-21. The rest were 25-19, 25-17. I mean, they were in control for the whole time, pretty much. It was pretty impressive.
So there, my one Irvine guy. So I wasn't hit Boonfeld's though, and that's why I wanted to go into that. So Dan, thanks for bringing that up. But with that, a lot of matches coming up in week 11. Crazy that we are in 11th week, which means there's like 7 or 8 weeks remaining in the season. So just beyond the halfway point. But there's a lot to be watching. So let's go, Dan.
Well, all right, we'll jump right into it. Well, I mean, I don't want to talk on our own conference. So we've got Pepperdine and Stanford. That should be pretty good. And you got USC and Hawaii. That should be pretty good. I believe it's the Outrigger tournament, right? That's coming up.
Yeah, that it
Yep.
is.
Yeah, so I'll take those and all the Outrigger games. Ball State's out there.
Can't
SC's
take a
out there.
whole tournament.
I can take the whole tournament. Now you guys got to figure it out. So you got so
You can name an exact match. How about that?
exact match. USC Hawaii. That'd be the exact
Yeah.
on the Outrigger for sure. That'd be the exact match. And does Ball State recover? It's got some games out there. What does Ball State as it's getting its pieces all together? How do they play out there? And home for Donan a little bit in terms of the.
Well, and we should
and
throw
his-
this in. Does Penn State get overlooked? Does Penn State get overlooked and end up beating a team or two?
Well, this Outrigger tournament, it has the reputation of having number ones getting knocked off night after night after night, or higher seeded teams. Because last year, Grand Canyon, UC Irvine, UCLA, and Hawaii.
We were there, buddy.
Oh, sorry, Lewis. Sorry, Lewis beat Irvine after Irvine beat Grand Canyon.
I'll make sure you remember I beat Irvine. We're gonna
know.
make that's you're
Hey,
saying
we
that.
beat Irvine too last year. Come on,
Yeah.
Dan.
So did we actually. So
Oh my
Oh,
God.
hey, just so you know, I beat Theo last year.
yes, he did.
Theo
did
So
I.
did Jay. So
So
did Jay.
I see
Theo
what
is
it's turning
remembering this in a
into.
couple weeks too. He's
And I
coming
really
for me.
appreciate that because I learned all those lessons and then went and beat Brad and knocked him out of playoffs.
All right, let's go to Theo. What are you watching this week?
Yeah, well, I think since Dan's not going to cover the MIVA, I will. Lewis and McKendree, match of the week. That is going to be a fun one.
Are you going to
super excited
dethrone
about
Nikki,
that.
the queen of the MIVA?
I got to get through Lindenwood. They're pretty darn good. So I got both matches. Here's what I know about a competitive inequity in our conference. I go play Lindenwood, then I go play McKendree. McKendree has one game.
That doesn't make any sense.
Nope.
Now, let me ask you that. Oh, you know what? I'll save that for the hot mic moment. Never
No.
mind. I got something for that, Dan. I got something for that.
So only one, huh, Theo? Or do you got another one in there?
I do. I got my other one is actually I'm going to take two. I'm going to make this real tough on Jay because I'm going to take the NJIT and George Mason match because I think that's a really interesting one, which has some big EIVA implications. So that's going to be a fun one for sure. And then I think the other one that we got to talk about is Where I had it here. Hold on one second here, folks.
Perhaps Stanford?
So no, not Stanford.
Belmont Abbey and Mount Olive.
Which one?
Belmont Abbey and Mount Olive is pretty good
Yes.
for conference implications. So
That's going to
Yeah,
be a
that-
really good one.
Mount
That's gonna
Olive's
be a really
6-0
good
in
one.
conference, and Belmont Abbey's 7-1.
I had another one, guys. I'll come back to it. Jay, take it.
All right, Jay.
The Belmont Abbey Mount Olive one for sure I'll be watching. USC Hawaii I will for sure be watching. The other one that I'm going to be watching is Princeton UC San Diego, because those are two teams that I feel are pretty evenly matched. San Diego obviously has Sherfan on the right side and Schellinger on the left side, and they got a decent middle that's doing some nice things. Princeton's also got some pretty good players. The typical thing for Princeton at this time of year is, are they all going to go out and are they just going to enjoy the sunshine and not play that hard, or are they going to go out and play hard because they want to actually make a dent somewhere? So, but I'll be watching that one. That's
Well, interesting too to add. Sherfan was out this week against Santa Barbara, and so be interesting to see if he's back in the lineup this week or not.
That could have some implications. But those are the ones I'll be watching.
Excellent. Well, we are at that time where we like to rob each other's players of the week. So, so Jay doesn't have anyone stolen from him this week. We'll let him go first.
I already
No,
gave it to you.
We already
Oh,
did it,
we
Rob.
already
my bad.
What's
I'm
wrong with
looking
you?
at my
What's
notes.
going
My
on?
bad. I actually was looking at SIAC just to update other stuff too. But 3 undefeated teams in conference play in the SIAC: Central State at 4-0, Fort Valley State 3-0, Edward Waters at 2-0. So NEC still waiting to start conference play apparently. No one's played each other yet, so nothing to report on there. But we're gonna start watching these playoff races. I mean, I am really interested in what's happening in the EIVA though, just because of what we're seeing competition wise. It's going to be tight over there too. We know Miva is a logjam with Nikki sitting up top, but that could change. We'll see what Dan does this week. We're always up for good volleyball. So with that, one of the favorite topics or segments, the hot mic or hot take moment. And the way I've been defining it has been this: it's things that we wouldn't say while we're recording, but we're going to do it anyways, because just for the sake of like creating a controversy. So who wants to jump in first? I mean, Theo had one, but I mean, don't want to, he's been on the show for like 45 minutes on his own. So
Give it to Theo. Let him start it.
Yeah, so I will, and honestly, the Miva was really the motivation for this topic that essentially came to my mind over the weekend. Right, so we're now in a day and age where we're watching artificial intelligence change every industry, right? And specifically, you know, it's affecting everything from government to sports to you name it, right? What I haven't understood yet, and maybe this is me not knowing AI quite well enough, but I know that a lot of the pro leagues are beginning to use AI for scheduling models and creating equity across all teams and being able to measure it down to distance traveled and put together from a mathematical equation, because that's how this has to work, how to make things fair and equitable across the sport. And watching Miva, and obviously Dan alluded to this a little bit, this schedule is insane. It's insane. And it's impossible to really find balance for it in the grand scheme of, if you look at this from logically, right, and you look at this as a human, it is impossible to make this balanced and make it fair. But I feel like AI has the ability to do this and do it the right way. And I wanted to get your guys' take. I don't know how familiar you guys are with this, but something's got to be done. You got to find a better way.
I'm interested in how it gets done. Do you just input the schedule and then tell it, hey, make this fair and equitable for everybody as much as possible, and then it just creates a schedule for you, then you just plug in the dates wherever you see?
Well, I think the key isn't just putting everyone in, it's also labeling where they're located, right? And so that the model understands miles that need to be traveled. And I'm sure that you could even come up with the understanding of who's busing to where, who's flying to where, because that helps them plan how it's going to pan out. But There absolutely, it's just math. At the end of the day, right? It's just math. And it's understanding some teams are going to be a little bit less fair because of travel that they have to do, right? Your location will always factor, but there's got to be a way to say, hey, we made it as fair as possible and we could show why. Here's how it looks, you know?
My guess is most likely somebody's written an AI program or written a program that these other organizations are using as a schedule model. So you'd have to get your hands on that, and then what are the parameters or what fits into that to make it happen? And that easily could be a cost factor. I can tell you what happened to the MIVA. I mean, ultimately, the schedule was created with some implications from feedback that we probably should have looked at again. We don't have true travel partners. Next year, the MIVA will have true travel partners, which will make the schedule a little bit smoother. I think when you have travel partners, it's easier to be like, hey, I'm going to try and play these two and have some distance in between. That'll help the MIVA out a little bit next year.
I got a question for you, Dan. So without the true travel partners, you guys did not obviously take the Hawaii model, which is playing everybody twice at one location or the other each year and then flip-flopping it. So you wanted everybody to still be in everybody else's gym. Is that correct?
That's correct, except for what they did was Queens was the one where you're going to have to play twice.
Sure.
So they said instead of just doing one, we're going to do two teams. So like Ball State was our team where last year they came to us twice. We went to them twice this year. And that way everybody had even home and away. And so the reason that came about is people were like, well, do you want even home and away? If you want that, we have to do it this way. Where in past years when Grand Canyon was in that model, you'd have, well, one year I'll have 6 home and the next year I'll have 8 home. And so you just were okay with being uneven between the 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah, that's tough. Ours is all double home, and then if you want to split, you can split. And it does eliminate a large amount of home matches every year because you can have the ability to have, 6 other
So
teams.
Theo, I think that's the thing. Like you get these other questions that come into it, and you have to answer those questions when you go into the model, and you have to have those parameters. Hey, are you trying to do home and away? Then, hey, are you trying to do a Thursday, Saturday? And so
Yeah.
so you bring it up, but I still think all those questions have to be answered into the AI, and the AI would then create the formula in terms of where you're at.
But I think we're there. Like we're from a technology perspective, that exists and we have the ability to do it. It's just a matter now of making sure that we're using the tools that exist.
Right.
Can't you use AI to create an AI program? I mean, you can't
That's what
go to
outthinks us, Jay.
ChatGPT and just input what you want, and then it just writes a program for you. I mean, that's what it's for.
Well, before you guys got here, Rob and I were trying to have AI build Dan Friend and Jay Hosack based on what's available in the internet and implement you guys into the podcast without you actually being here.
I bet
I
I
wish
look
I could
good.
see
You
the
put
picture.
one of my best outfits, right? So that looked really good. That'd be fantastic.
I wish you could tell it to draw a picture of us. I'd love to see what it makes us look like.
It's gonna be Jay wearing a Tommy Burger t-shirt or something.
Nice.
Fellas, I got to run. I
Yep.
got practice.
Well, it's turning from the Theo's Thoughts episode to the Dan J Pod Bomb episode. So,
nice. See you,
All
Theo.
right.
All right. I got a hot take.
all right.
Not really a hot take, but somebody had asked, what product would I never endorse?
That was a question from the fan.
Yeah. Now, I apologize ahead of time for anybody who might be listening who might have a vested interest in this product. I have zero idea why anyone would want to use it. I am talking about the ball holding machine that holds a ball on a crane in the air and just lets it sit there, and then the hitters go up and hit it. First of all, so unrealistic. It makes absolutely no sense to train something that never is going to happen. Second of all, that thing's dangerous. If your player's hand hits any one of those little clips, you could slice a finger off. You could break a finger. Thirdly, you're taking away reps from a setter who can actually set the ball, even if it's your coach who's just getting reps with you, even if it's just a friend of yours who's maybe not even a setter. Get a realistic rep I don't understand the benefit of those things. There are lots of great training aids out there. I'm going to plug one that I actually like, which is that it's the board that you put your passing platform underneath. You clip in, so to speak, and it teaches your players about angles. I think that's a fantastic training aid. But this whole holding the ball, letting it sit there in the air and not move, and you're supposed to go up and take a swing at it, it's not realistic. I would never endorse that product in a million years.
There we go. Fan question answered by Jay on the hot take moment. All right, Dan, you're up.
Yeah, I don't know if I have any hot topics right now. I can tell you, I mean, ultimately, one of the things that's going on that even the call I was on was, so ultimately, opt-in, opt-out institutions. Well, you got a lot of Division II institutions that compete collegiate championships with Division I men's volleyball. And not saying that any of the Division IIs would want to opt in, but they're not even really able to right now in terms of that. So it's like it's really cloudy, and there's no real like. It's one of the things we're trying to figure out. Well, what are the options for of a Division II? Because again, competitive equity. Like, hey, the institutions that I'm competing with are going to be able to scholarship 6, 7, 8. And maybe I want to have that route. Maybe or at least give me the option to say, hey, I want to go do this so that I can feel like I can compete. Maybe I won't be at the same 7, but I want to go to 5 or I want to go to 6. And my institution is going to allow me to do that. And maybe a lot of Division II institutions would say, hey, we won't opt in because we're tuition driven and we want the roster numbers. But to allow that, what does that look like for Division IIs that are competing with Division I? We're not just talking about men's volleyball. There's 10 or 11 collegiate championship sports. There's women's bowling, there's hockey, there's water polo, there's sand volleyball, there's all these things. And they really don't have it figured out. And they don't have the language figured out. So yeah, maybe a hot topic in the sense of like, there's no clarity on it, but that's one of the things that I was on visiting about that they're trying to work through and figure out and probably won't have it figured out until the summer.
Yeah. Well, good stuff as always. I thought, we got about 4 or 5 more minutes. There were some short fan questions that didn't get answered in our last episode, so I wanted him up your way because I think they're going to be fairly quick. One of them is from a purely physical standpoint, where is the toughest gym to play at? I'm not quite sure what they mean by physical standpoint, so I'm just going to go with, unless you guys have a take on it, toughest gym to play in.
USC's back black small box gym.
Oh, that Lion
the
Gym?
North Gym.
North Gym. That's a tough one to play in sometimes.
That is
Especially
tough.
if the whole band there and all the fans are there. They're like, they're on
It's a
top
glorified high school gym.
Yeah.
That's where I played when I played against USC as a North Gym.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty tough. I'd have to say BYU is pretty difficult to play in. Fans are unruly.
Hard to serve a ball in.
Yeah, right.
Here we go again. Area 51.
Here we go. But I'd say BYU is probably the toughest that I've been a part of.
Okay. And then obviously Jay's already hit his one up. Product you'll never endorse, but I love this suggestion, by the way. What if the coach with the most wins amongst the CVW teams gets a CVW trophy? It would be an empty salt shaker. That would be the trophy. Easy. So I may start tracking who's played whom.
Nice. I like it. Why not?
And then
in your office for the year.
Yeah. And then the other question was your thoughts on at large this year.
I think it's coming out of the Big West right now, but it also has to do with how conference tournaments go. Like if everybody wins the conference tournament that you think is going to win the conference tournament. So UCLA, Long Beach, and I'm not throwing any shade at Irvine or Hawaii. I mean, they're talented. They could easily come in and win. I don't know. I mean, who's favored to win? I guess Loyola might still be favored to win the MIVA, but your at large is probably coming out of the Big West or MPSF. And if you look at the overall rankings and records, it's leaned towards a Big West school before an MPSF school. That's if there's no upsets. And the RPI stuff comes out in a couple of weeks, I think. So, and you have a better idea of where it sits. But yeah.
Yep.
I'd have to say one for sure from the Big West, and I'll be honest with you, I think the MPSF gets the second one, and I think Dan's right. If they fall the way they're supposed to fall, the obvious winner of the Big West, we're just going to assume, everybody, please don't send hate mail. We're just going to assume it's Long Beach. Then it's a battle between Irvine and Hawaii, and let's just assume, everybody, that UCLA wins the MPSF. it's probably going to be USC would be the second one, at least as of this moment. Doesn't mean that somebody else can't step up, but those are probably the four that I
Right.
think that'll come out of there.
Tough is Irvine beat SC twice.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Wow. So
Well,
it's not like they split.
The other part of the question, I think I only read the first half, but any more thoughts on more teams making a postseason tournament?
Not this
I get
year.
this expansion.
No, I brought that question up, like not happening. It's on the docket, but with everything going on in NCAA Division I legislation, that budget committee meets late April. And so do they say, hey, men's volleyball gets to go to 12? I know Jay wants 16, but what's in the hopper right now and what's been approved is 12. So if we can make that move, that would at least be good, and then you can work from that. But it's got to get approved by the budget committee.
Here's the caveat, and this is the monkey wrench that nobody saw coming. So this is the last year that it's hosted at a school, correct, Dan?
No, UCLA next year.
All right, so UCLA next year. The following year, it goes to the Orleans in Las Vegas.
Right.
It goes to New
And all
Orleans.
of this stuff happens with the NCAA and the roster limits and the craziness and the D2 potential breakoff. I would not be surprised to see them table that and not have it, because if that happens, D1 will go back to a true Final Four, or at least how many teams, how many conferences are D1. And I think there's 4 or 5 right now. So
Well, just so you
wouldn't
know,
be
like
surprised. I don't think they're going to go to 12 Division I teams if D2 breaks off before that.
D2's not even in the hopper. That was a question that came up on this committee. So like women's bowling's in the hopper to create a Division II championship. They do a survey first. And so that survey is going to happen come this summer. And I asked, I said, is men's volleyball having a survey, or is it no? They said we're not even there yet.
Well, then that should help, and I think it should go to 16 quicker than 12. That's my
But 12 is approved no matter what you think. It's
I know.
what approved. So, but yeah, I think you'll know this summer if that happens, or if they're going to wait and table it another year from that standpoint. So
cool.
All great questions from our fans through Volley Talk and through DM. So, with that, we actually went long. We thought we weren't even going to happen. Went from not having an episode to Theo's thoughts to Dan and Jay's pod bomb, and we've got an hour and a half under our belt here. So appreciate you guys jumping in, even with your other commitments, and you totally appreciate it. And before you guys came on, Theo was sharing how many people have come up to him and are thankful for the podcast, what you guys do. So
you know what, though, Theo's famous. He was on another podcast that popped up on my thing, and so Theo might be getting out of our realm a little bit, just letting you guys.
He's also on nationally televised commercials. I mean, the guy's just a rock star.
I know.
Wow.
Pella Windows. Once that deal happened, Theo went viral.
Yep.
He needs to start his own endorsement product stuff, so he starts getting paid. So.
All right, gentlemen, best of luck to you this week. We'll be watching from afar, and we'll be jumping on again next Monday.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to College Volleyball Weekly. Be sure to follow Rob Aspero at the Rob on the Mic on Instagram and at Rob on the Mic on Twitter.